Alright, here we are again with another YouTube video. For those of you that follow my channel, very small channel, apologies. But I have this GT500 here that I live in California, and inspection and carb laws here are pretty crazy. So the last video I did had to do with my car was not passing inspection, and it was an ODB2 port problem. In other words, a computer code was coming up saying, you know, that the EGR was not ready. So I replaced the EGR valve, drove it around, still EGR not ready. Then finally I loaded the stock tune on and I took everything off. And I'll show you, I took this off. Even though this is a no tune required PMAS, it looks pretty. It comes with its own mass airflow sensor, that's why there's no tune required. But I still had a tune on my car. I took this off, Ford Racing throttle body, and I took this off. This is a VMP supercharger intake elbow. They basically replace these parts here, the stock air intake, the stock throttle body, the stock supercharger intake elbow, and then I probably should have stuck my Bomba tuner up there so you guys, but those of you know, if you have I call them email tunes, you pay $400 for a tuning device, you plug it in and it uploads the tune to your car's computer. The computer on this car is right here. This is the computer on the GT500. So, on this year anyway. Alright, so I'm going to tell you some lessons learned. So once I did that and I loaded the stock tune on, when you load the stock tune on with a Bomba tuner, it resets everything. So you have to start your engine has to relearn all of the inspection codes all over again. The computer has to kind of relearn things in order to show, and there's a couple different lights. One of them is called a CAT light, which means are your catalytic converters ready? And then the EGR light, which I was having issues with. And then there's a bunch of other ones on there. And once they all check out to be green on your tuner, well, this is a misnomer. If you have a SCT tuning device, I'm going to show you what that looks like. Alrighty, rough. Show and tell time for tuning devices. Alright, let me move this intake out of the way, because we're going to talk about intakes on this video. Alright, so this here is a scanner you can order from Amazon for maybe $20-30, which ain't bad. This reads inspection and maintenance codes. This here is what your typical SCT tuner looks like. They're smaller looking in real life. You can see like how small it is. They really fixed the size. The older ones used to be large. You know, it's a typical tuning device. They each plug into your car's, this is called an onboard diagnostic port. So this one does not read inspection codes. So it just because you have no codes, this only reads engine trouble codes. So if this comes up with a code, you know that your engine, you need to replace a part or something's wrong with your engine. So on this does both. It'll read codes and things like that. But the big difference is this I and M button here. Inspection and maintenance, they're totally different codes. So it's basically your car run fine if none of these codes have a ready light, then your car will still run fine, unless there's something faulty. So it's kind of weird. So in order to reset your I and M codes, you have to use one of these. On this, it'll show up as a P1000 code, which is generic, but sometimes, like this wasn't even showing P1000 and this was still flagging things. So you need both if you're having the issues I've had. You can't just rely on oh, I got a bomba tuner that can clear codes. No, this only clears fault codes. This one will actually dive deeper. Alright, so that's those. Anyway, long story short, I loaded the stock tune back on my car. I think it's hard to tell, to be honest, because taking these parts off and that intake, you're thinking, how is that gonna affect anything, EGR flags? But I don't know. I thought, well, maybe this, but you know, it could have been the tune. Oh yeah, the only mod I didn't take off was my smaller supercharger pulley, because I was like, nah. And even though, to be honest, the stock tune on these, I was very impressed. It ran very smooth with the stock parts back on. It actually ran a little bit smoother than with the tune. It was more highway friendly, I guess. And I think that's how Ford and most manufacturers do. When you buy a car from the factory, they're going to tune it so that, you know, it's more highway friendly. Speed comes on more gradually, but it still sounded nice. And things. So the stock tune ran fine, but I could tell there was a performance draw. So let's put it there. Shout out to Bama. Their tune did give me more performance. So I can tell, like, there was a little bit of a performance draw, but not too bad. I'm going to talk about these intakes now. Sorry, I get long-winded on these videos. So, all right, here's the, you know, your stock intake on these models was a closed, 2007 to 2009 was a closed box. And you can see it's a good design. This piece sucks in air from the fender well, and you're getting cold air because it's covered. And then it goes through a very smooth transition to the throttle body, and it fits around the throttle body perfect. It slides right on there. Now the later years, they have an open box, and then they actually have a it's almost like a muffler right here to quiet things down. This year doesn't have that. It's a really good design for this intake here. Now this, you can see it's huge. The fitment, they give you like this rubber coupling, and it's a little bit janky. It was very hard to fit on. It doesn't just slide right on, and it's even, you got to watch out because the bottom can get pinched. So beautiful intake, but they probably need to work on the fitment. And this is carb legal, that's why I got it. Now, and you can see it's a huge, pretty looking filter, good for car shows. Now, a common misnomer is cold air intake. Well, you can see it's an open filter, it's not a closed filter, and they give you like a little thing to help it seal against the hood, but honestly, you're getting engine heat in. This one, the intake air temperatures are a lot lower, and I know from experience, well, I'm probably lying on this car. These run hot anyway, but I had an S550 GT, and when I put a nice PMAS, when I put the nice PMAS intake on, it looks pretty. It was a great intake, but when I had the nice thing about these bomba tuners is you can plug them in and mount them on your windshield, and you can pick different gauges. So I had the intake air temperatures. That's what IAT means, and the hotter air is not good. You want cold, dense air. So when it was hot out and you're driving in traffic and you're at a stoplight, I can see the IATs creeping up, 170, 180, 190. It was like, 200 degree intake air temperatures almost, if I recall correctly. And then once you start moving, the air temperatures start going down again. But they were still hot, and I just recall that, and you could tell the engine would misfire a little bit and things like that. So for those of you buying cold air intakes thinking, unless it's a closed system like that, my closed box, you're gonna suck in some hot engine air. Now if you live in a cooler climate, it's probably gonna be fine. Like in wintertime, I mean, that car ran amazing, but in summer, not so good. So anyway, so which ones makes more horsepower on the dyno? This one does. Get my flashlight. Alright. This is a raw, unedited video. That's how I do. So this one makes more horsepower on the dyno. Why do you think that is? Well, when they dyno your car, the hood's open and they have a big giant fan that blowing. If you guys ever watch those dyno tune videos, the hood's always open, and of course this is sucking air in all around it. And something like this is, you know, makes a difference if the hood's open or closed. There's no difference. It's sucking air right here, but it's always going to be cooler air. Now, yeah, so this is going to make more difference on the dyno. What's going to make more difference in everyday driving? This. I know it's debatable based on climate, but if you have a smooth, I mean, a lot of people just replace, they sell kits where you can just replace your elbow. That might be the only problem. You probably got a closed system, but your elbow's got all these bends and wrinkles in it, but this one's pretty straight through. So this one's probably good. So, everyday daily driving, that's why people say the stock airbox, especially with these newer cars, if it's a newer Mustang, the stock airbox is pretty good design. The only thing you really probably need to do is you can replace the filters with better air filters. The new Mustangs, you got to take out that, I don't know, they put a big restriction in those for emissions. But overall, daily driving, if you're, like, this is my daily driver, so I'm in and out of traffic and things like that. So, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not going to put the PMAS back on. It's pretty. I might down the road put it back on. You know, but I'm going to keep the stock airbox because on these cars they're actually good design. And then I'm just going to put, you know, this back on and this back on. Now this is, you're probably wondering, what the heck is this? For those of you GT500 guys, well, it replaces this piece. There's your throttle body. I'm replacing with the nice shiny one, and then it goes into this intake. This is a elbow that goes to your supercharger. Well, this is a ported elbow. VMP, pretty part. They ported it all out. This is not. So when you look inside, you can see where this, you know, this is still restrictive. It's hard to explain. So it's almost like, I don't know if that ported elbow makes a difference unless you port the piece that it's going against. But VMP says it does. I'm gonna load the bomber tune on. Now, another thing that, well, a lot of you folks with superchargers, you put the smaller pulley on. That's what I did. Smaller pulley, 2.5 inch. Stock, I think, is 3, it's over 3 inches on these. And that's, you gotta put another pulley called an idler pulley. That's a larger, it takes up the belt slack. So, another thing people say, well, if you put a smaller supercharger pulley on, you're getting more boost, and you really got to give your engine a tune. I don't know, this is a 2007 car, so it doesn't have a lot of the computer systems that these newer cars have, but honestly, it ran fine with the stock tune. It ran great, actually. I think, because the computer does, I mean, I don't think, those of you might beat me up in the comments, but I don't think every single part you put on your car requires a tune. Because your car's stock computer, this thing, you know, that's why it's here. It measures everything while you're driving, and if something changes, and even based off your driving style, sometimes, I don't know about this old car, but the newer ones, you know, even off your driving style, they'll change. But you know, it probably says, hey, I don't know if it might say there's more boost, and it might account for the extra boost. The only thing, if you do get a smaller pulley and you're getting more boost, you need to replace the spark plugs with better spark plugs. They call them colder plugs, and some people even say replace the fuel injectors. I don't know, I kept my stock injectors on this one, but aside from that, I don't know if you really need to get a tune. If you're worried, for those of you that are worried about inspection and things, you know, you could probably put a smaller pulley on and do the plugs and injectors and be fine. So, and for those of you that aren't too technical, like, why do I change the pulley out? I mean, how does that help? Just change my pulley. Another physics lesson. So, a larger pulley that these come with, it spins, and the rotating mass is slower, so it's spinning things slower. So your boost is stock boost on these is 9 psi. A smaller pulley, it spins a lot faster, so you're getting more boost. It's spinning everything faster, and I think I'm getting about according to my gauge, I'm getting maybe almost 13 psi, which is, you know, 4 psi. You know, I'm not very good at math, but anyway, it makes a huge difference. Now these blowers, they're kind of they're small on these. I think it's only 1.9 liter. It's not like a 3-liter Whipple. But so you got to be careful. You know, you should add maybe some cooling or something, because the supercharger is going to get a little hot. But I had no issues with mine. But anyway, the idea is you spin the supercharger rams more air into the engine, and boom. And boom, you're getting, you know, I don't know, maybe almost 100 horses just out of that, which is crazy. So that's why these supercharger motors are so easy to modify. It's crazy. But the only weak point is the engine itself. All right, so that's my spiel. Thanks for listening, and yeah, you know, sorry for complaining about California. I love California. The people here are really good people, so it's just a very expensive place to live. They need to fix this whole carb stuff. I keep hearing rumors that they're going to, because it's kind of like a money racket. You know, $500 a year to get a tag on your car. It's like, come on. All right, I'm gonna put stuff back together, and then I'll come back and show you guys what I did. But the moral of the story is of this video, after half an hour of babbling, I'm keeping the stock airbox on this one, because it's a good design. Okay, and I replaced the filter. I don't know if the filters, I put a K&N filter in. That's a whole nother story, because these K&N filters, they did some tests. I saw a bunch of tests online, and the one I have supposedly lets a lot of dirt particles through, and you don't want that either. But I guess I'm gonna be brave and keep it on there. But yeah, if you get a performance filter, it's not just airflow. You gotta also look at how much dirt are they letting in your engine, because some of them actually do. This one I think is good, because you know, you can see it's capturing all the dirt. So all right, I'm gonna get to work. I'm putting it off. I love working on my car, but it's just a pain sometimes. It takes me longer to find my tools than it does actually work on the car. What do you guys think? Same boat. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so this is the ported intake elbow, and here's what I was talking about. It's a pretty piece. It says VMP. I did look next to the other one. It does look larger, so I don't know if VMP made their own. But when you look inside here, you can see where it's wider. Something to, let me get a pointer. So you can see inside. Damn it, it's kind of hard to see. Anyway, you can see inside where the walls, this is the supercharger out kind of part. You can see how the supercharger part's more narrow, right? And this is wider. So it's almost like, you know, you're taking more air and pushing it into a smaller space. So it's like, that's why I'm like, well, will this really help? I don't know, but it is larger. Another thing you can see is there is actually some, looks like oil inside of there. And this is just that famous Mustang thing. Even with a catch can, it still gets blow by, and I don't know if I'm gonna bother cleaning it, because I cleaned it last time. So, but anyway, this is the ported intake elbow. They say you can take a Dremel and kind of port the opening yourself, but I'm not gonna fuck with that. So, anyway, it's a good piece. I like the VMP elbow. I'm gonna put the rest of this on. These are aftermarket, these blue covers. Signature of the engine builder. Look, a fellow person named Bill. You can see. Romeo plant. Alright. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about. For those of you that aren't as mechanically inclined, we were talking about the pedal commander. When you hit the gas, it sends a signal to the throttle body computer here. I like the Ford Performance one because it comes with all this stuff attached. This here, if you buy like a BPK, you got to take your old stuff off and put it on. And long story short, what happens is it'll open and close these based off of your throttle. I don't know if you see that, but I wanted to say carb choke cleaner, whatever. Get some kind of cleaner carb. I think they even sell throttle body, and you want to take a rag because look at how dirty this is. You want to get in between down here, in between the fins, kind of when you push them back like that. That's where the dirt builds up. You clean it out. It just makes everything flow better. If your car is running a little rough, a lot of people say my car is running rough, I don't know what the deal is. Well, you could need to clean your throttle body off. So that's something a lot of people, I don't think about too often either. So, oh, there it is. Here's what it looks like on top, in case. Very shiny, sparkly. Ford Racing. I'm gonna try to polish it up before I put it on there. And here, it's a larger opening than the stock. Where's the stock? I put the here. In case you're curious. Okay, Ford Racing and stock. There you go. This is what they look like next to each other. One's very shiny, but if you go like this, you can see the one on top is Ford Racing, the one on the bottom is stock. I actually cleaned my stock one off it was really filthy when I took it off. And you see, usually you might have to take your stock, I think this is called an actuator thing, but this Ford Racing comes with it all. So if I flip them over, rough. All right, come on. Dun, 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 dun. You can kind of see a little bit of it's hard to tell because one's like 65 millimeter and one might be, I think the stock one might be 60 millimeters. So, but the main difference is, yeah, I think here you can just see the better design. Yeah, so that's the throttle body part. So, but also some people get a mono blade. These are called dual blades because you see you got two. These are called blades. Mono blades, you get one big blade. You get a bigger opening and better airflow, but your car is gonna run. Some people say it's not as streetable. I don't know, I never drove with one. But they say it might be too much air in the engine unless you got like some heavy mods. So I just went with Ford Racing because it comes with, if you buy a Ford part, you know it's gonna fit. All right. I told you my videos were kind of uncut. Let me get this. I don't know if you could tell the. This is my stock Ford flashlight here. And you probably can't tell. If I stick these next to each other, yeah, it's real hard to tell with these two. But on the top, you can kind of tell the VMP looks just bigger. But oh well, I tried. Anyway. Save all your old parts. But yep, I just wanted to go over if your throttle body you're taking it off, you might as well go through and just clean it. It's got a bunch of gunk, you know, black soot they usually get in them, and then you might notice your car runs better. Cool. Okay, so I'm in the middle of putting this on, but you can see it looks pretty. Nice shiny throttle body. Twin blade, this is called. Now, I'm going to give you a pro tip. The throttle body has 4 bolts. They're very weak. Hand tighten these. I torqued them down once and they snapped. Anyway, 1, 2, but there's ones underneath. You can kind of barely see under there. There's one, and then this one here. Now, if you're like me, you don't have a lot of spare bolts lying around, and when you get to these tight spaces, if they drop into that engine, you gotta go to Ace Hardware. I'm not... If you're like me, you dropped a lot of bolts into your engine, you gotta go to Ace Hardware, which I had to do when I was taking stuff apart to get it to pass inspection. Anyway, so just be careful. I'm going to show you a pro tip of how to prevent that. So, if you have one of these long magnets, I suggest, these are great because they extend and they stick right to your bolts. If you drop them in your engine, you can reach down and click. But a trick I like to do is, you can actually get the bolt started just by using this magnet thing, and then I can go in there and you can actually at least get the bolt in there. I usually do 2 hands, giggity. I usually do I'll have the bolt kind of started, or maybe I'll guide this, but these little magnet extenders, that's just a pro tip for you guys, that when you get to where you got bolts here that you can't even see and you're going by feel, or well, pro tip, I'm not a pro as you can tell, but that's just a life experience. I hate to give away my age, but I've dropped a lot of bolts in engine bays, and then you wonder, is that bolt gonna ruin something? It usually ends up in my tire. Alright, I'm going to finish the assembly. If I feel the urge to stop with another tip, I will. Okay. Another pro tip, when you tighten these bolts down on these parts, some of you may be inclined to, okay, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. But you know, when you're putting on a tire, they say use a star pattern. Well, there's a reason for that. So I usually go okay, this one first, and then this bottom one and diagonally across from it, then this one and this one diagonally across from it, and then same thing what I did for this. Because what can happen is, say you tighten the crap out of these top 2, they're really tight, and then you do the bottom 2, there's a chance this thing could possibly be tilted slightly up a couple millimeters. You never know. This just makes sure that the, if you go 1 diagonal, 2 diagonal, 3 diagonal, 4, sounds like a game, right? But that's how I recommend it. Just like if you're putting on a tire, you don't go, they don't teach you when you put a tire on. Well, maybe some of you never replaced the tire, but you want to do a star pattern, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, it's not going to be completely evenly sealed. With this, I just recommend hand tightening, because I tried the whole torque thing and one of these bolts snapped and it was kind of a pain. So hand tighten this stuff. Don't forget to plug everything back in. To double check. Even these little things, this goes to the air box once I get the air elbow back on, and things like that. So, all right, good job, guys. We're doing good so far. We're making up good timing here. I'm gonna talk about tuning, because I have these engines they call it heat soak, which basically means they tend to run hot, especially when they got the supercharger pulley on. You're spinning up this supercharger. If you got a big Whipple 3-liter, those don't run as hot because they're just big and more efficient. This one, I got it kind of maxed out with that pulley. So a lot of people buy, I guess underneath here, there's a big intercooler or little intercooler very expensive part. Well, I bought a low temperature thermostat. These are real easy. Thermostat goes right there, and hold on, thermostat goes here, and I'll show you. Dun, 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 dun. All right, here's the stock thermostat. I'll just tell you, they all look the same. What happens is, this thing's spring loaded. All your engine coolant flows through the thermostat. The thermostat opens and closes basically. If the engine's cold, it's gonna stay closed, because if you flow coolant through, it's gonna keep the engine too cold, right? So anyway, that's the thing. So if your thermostat is stuck closed, then you're kind of fucked, because your engine's gonna overheat. But if it's, sorry for my language, but if it's stuck open, you're probably okay. You know, but you should still get it. You'll notice in the winter time. But anyway, these come stock with like a 200, it's like 220. It's a high temperature thermostat. In other words, it waits till your engine temps get very high, and then it opens up and boom. But when you got a smaller pulley on, and you're saying, and everything's running a little bit warmer, so I put this 160 degree. Most people get 170. I got a 160 degree. Mishimoto makes them, and I'll tell you, my my temperature gauge in the car, it never goes. If it goes at the halfway mark, then I know it's hot outside, but it always stays slightly below halfway mark. But when you tune the car, you also have to, and a lot of people forget this part. I mean, you don't have to, but say you have a tune on your car and you get a low temp thermostat, and you're like, okay, and then you can get them $50. There's a setting, and I kind of had to Google it. I think I got my fans. You can program on these SSD tuners. You know, it has additional options, like, you know, hey, you want to load the tune, fine, but you can also tell it to turn your coolant fans on at a different temperature. So these radiator fans on. So stock, they come on, you know, normal temperature, but I got mine set to come on because I have a 160 degree thermostat. I got the fans programmed to kind of go along with that. So I think I have the fans coming on at 180 degrees or something. I forget. I had to kind of research how there's recommendations online that you can Google, so don't take my word for it. But if you have a tuner that's capable, a lot of people don't do this. They just throw a low temp thermostat in there, and it's fine. It'll still work, but it works better, you know, because you think the thermostat and fans are designed to work together. So make sure, if you get a low temp thermostat and you have a tuner, go ahead and program your fans to come on at a lower temperature as well. So another pro tip from a non-pro. I'm just an old guy who's been down all this road before. So another pro tip, when you're putting your inlet tube around the throttle body, make sure you reach under and feel that it's actually around it on the bottom. I've had this happen before too, where, you know, you got everything hooked up and the car's sputtering or missing and misfiring, and it's like, oh no, everyone, you know, is there something wrong with my engine? And a lot of times it's just, there might be something, you know, it might have got, the lip might have got caught under something. Just make sure it's completely around the throttle body. Otherwise, it's going to run rough. And you're going to be wondering why, especially if you have something like this where it's kind of a tight fit. Just reach your hand under there and just feel, make sure everything's under there. And when everything's good, you know, tighten these down. Here's my, pro tip. A little tool like this makes it real simple, you know, just stick it on here, and so, oops, see, already I have to plug some things in. So, you know, all right, to be continued. All right, I have somewhat of an embarrassing pro tip. Zip ties. See, when you're taking when you're taking these connectors off, sometimes I don't know. I need an education on connectors. This one, I know you gotta pull this pin tab out and everything, but for some reason, when I put it back on, it literally just keeps sliding off. So I guess I must have maybe broke something on the bottom of it, or so I decided to use a zip tie and just kind of pull it super tight. So now it's not gonna slide off. So yeah, unfortunately, you might have casualties like that. Remember, zip ties are your friend. Be creative. All right. If you're wondering, this is a sound tube. Doesn't apply to this intake, but okay. The embarrassing pro tip. Another pro tip, when you tune your car, it requires you to keep your ignition on. Not to have your car running, just keep your ignition on. And then it uploads your tune, makes changes. So my pro tip is, if you have a battery tender or something that's gonna, just in case, I mean, if your battery dies in the middle of a tune, you could mess up your car's computer. If you hear the term, hey, I bricked my computer, it means they screwed themselves because something happened in the middle of the tune. It's almost like when your computer is pushing an update and they're like, please do not turn off your computer. It's the same concept. You might be able to recover, but I suggest, I mean, my battery's new, but be on the safe side. You know, your ignition key's gonna be on for a good 5 minutes or so. So another pro tip. So I'm gonna get in the car here. All right. So this is kind of, in case you're curious, this is kind of how these SC tuners. Oh, also pro tip. These tuners, they have firmware, so you need to install software on your computer, and then there's always going to be a firmware. I did a tune once on my, what the hell's going on with this thing? Sorry, it's my headlight. My battery dead? Hold on. There. Alright, I'll be back. Need to get a different light. Apologies, my headlamp ran out. I have 2 headlamps for that purpose. Another pro tip. But these, like any device, even my radar detector up here, they all have firmware. But the problem is with these, I learned the hard way. I got a device, I loaded a tune in my car without doing a firmware update. And the car ran like shit. And then they suggested update the firmware. And it was a ton of firmware. I mean, it downloaded, I mean, not exaggerating, it was going through a file count, like a couple thousand files. And unless it just re-downloads everything all the time. So I'll show you what these tuners come with. And most tuners do come with, it comes with this. This is a connector, looks familiar, USB. It plugs right into your computer. So that's that connector. And that's how you get your firmware updates. I think the newer ones are Wi-Fi. But this is what we want, because we want to plug it into our car. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. So this connector, and these, I don't know if you guys that have these older Mustangs, this thing just kind of hangs down there. You can clip it up, but it always falls down. It's kind of cheapo, but I'm going to plug this in here. Now I'm going to take the other end and plug it into my device here. It's pretty simple. It's kind of weird. It looks like a TV, an HDMI port. Hold on a sec. Boom. And then as soon as you plug it in, it comes to life. Now I'm going to get my fan temperatures for my thermostat. Remember I said I have an aftermarket thermostat. So 1 second. See, I took a picture of my fan speeds when I want them to come on. Low fan speed, and because I had a 172 degrees and 180. I kind of did the math based off of the stock fan speeds, whatever they came on. So anyway, where's my key? All right. Okay, you got to turn the key on. Here. Processing data. It also checks to make sure this is married to your VIN. And all right, I don't want to see, you can use it as a gauge cluster kind of. They sell a thing. Hold on, how do I get out of this? Hold on. No, that's recording. Okay, you probably notice I'm wearing a different outfit. This is a part of the video I guess I forgot to press record on, and I think it's very important. So I went back into my car just to show you this part of the tuner, because these tuners have options. So I'm gonna go back. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna click program vehicle. This has tunes loaded. You hook it to your computer. Not only do you do the firmware updates, but you load the tunes also. It's real easy. You can return the stock. I already got the tune loaded. I'm just coming back to show you this part. Turn key on, continue. Shut the door. Alright, I just want to show you guys the and these are like, you can name your tunes. I called this 91 octane TB for throttle body, because that was my latest part. The nice thing about Bama is whenever you get a new car part, you can tell them, can you send me a tune for it? See the one above it says PMAS. Alright, so this is what I want to show you. Previous changes found. So in other words, I added some additional options to this tune. And you can see it goes through all these options that you can pick. So they'll send you an email tune, but the tuner itself, the SCT tuner, most tuners I think allow you to do this. This is the only one that I'm familiar with, but I'll show you all the cool options. All right. Some of this stuff I don't know even what it is, but you mechanics out there, global spark. I guess you can mess with the spark degrees. WOT, air fuel, axle ratio. That's kind of nice if you get like, say you have a aftermarket gears, like you upgrade it to 373s or 411s, you can change your axle ratio. Tire revolutions per month. That basically means tire size. So for those of you that buy, say this came with 18-inch wheels and tires. What if I went up to 20-inch? Well, my speedometer is going to get thrown off. I don't know. It's either going to read that I'm going too slow or I'm going too quick. You might get pulled over for speeding. You never know. So even if you don't want to tune your car, you're afraid about, emissions and things, a tuner's nice to have just if you get different tires. I know some of you Mustang guys with the big spinners. I'm not a hater. It doesn't make sense to me, but now some of you folks that maybe you're like me eventually, maybe I want to get a 20-inch wheel. You can go ahead and use this, and it'll basically correct your speedometer for you. So yeah, people don't realize you can't just be putting on tires. I mean, you can. Your car will still work fine, but it's going to throw things off. Speed limit, that's kind of nice because, especially these new cars, they come with a speed limiter. This turns that off. So, you can do, 180 instead of 150 maybe. I don't know. Rev limit dry. and rev limit neutral. I think this is kind of like for some people don't realize, but most cars, when you're at a stoplight and you're revving your engine, most of the time it might let you rev it to 2 or 3 grand, and that's as high as it can go. This lets you basically disable that too. Another thing about this rev limiters, now you can see I got mine, you know, stock. These rev out about 6 grand, okay? And these are just, they're not a Coyote engine where you can wind them to the moon. So you can click on here and, you know, I can make it, you know, 7,000 RPMs. I got it set for, what, 6,500. Because I want to be conservative, only because sometimes when I'm winding out, which I don't do too often, it'll hit the limiter and I'll be like, whoops. And this way I can shift it kind of before it hits the limiter. But in other words, you know, but be careful with that. A lot of folks that are kind of new to the game, they'll get a tuner and then they'll be like, oh, you know, my car, especially Coyote engines, I think you might be able to get away with it. Some of you guys are crazy. I'm thinking, you know, they'll set the rev limiter to like 8 grand, and then they'll wonder, why did my engine just blow up? And it's like, because there's a rev limiter there for a reason. So with great power comes great responsibility, so be careful. These will let you, you know, turn off all the nannies. But that rev limiter, I mean, I don't suggest messing around with it unless you got the, I think you need the maybe cams and things like that. You might be able to mess with it, but just be careful with things like that, because, you know, you can blow your engine up. Most folks, you know, it's just, they don't have to go through all this. Just load the tune and you're done. And that's the idle speed. I didn't change that. But here's where, I like this because it saves my values, my low and high fan speeds. Because if you put a low temp thermostat in there, you want to adjust your fan speeds. Low speed fan, high speed fan. I'm not sure the difference. I wonder if that means, are you sitting at a stoplight? Are you going slow or are you driving fast? But I just kind of did the math on those. But yeah, if you have a low temp thermostat, your fan speeds work with your thermostat. So that's all I wanted to show you. In addition to just loading a tune, if you get different tires, if you get a different gear ratios, this will let you, or if you get a different thermostat, this will let you play around with all that. So I'm just going to exit all that. And then also on here, like I said, there's gauges, but your car has to be running. You can pick all different gauges, and I bought an aftermarket mount. You can mount it up here if you're curious about intake air temperatures like I get. Vehicle functions. This is where you can read and clear diagnostic trouble codes. There's also special functions. So let's see. Let's see what kind of special functions. I think, yeah, cam reset. Cam means keep alive memory. When I was talking about those I&M inspection codes and things like that, when you're driving your car, there's a little thing called keep alive memory. It's just basically your car records basically all the I&M codes, inspection and maintenance codes I talked about, like, hey, are your catalytic converters ready, this and that, you know, and it kind of records that. I think even sometimes your driving style, and you can clear that. Like, if your battery dies or you disconnect your battery, that clears your cam memory. It's called KAM memory, but you can do it through here. You can clear your keep alive memory using this. You can clear diagnostic codes and read diagnostic codes. So it's a pretty cool device, but I just wanted to jump back in and insert this part to the video because I think I forgot to hit record on this part. And I wanted to show you because I have some friends too that I want to see this. They got really nice wheels and tires, but I forgot, it's like, hey, did you know that your speedometer is going to be thrown off now because your speedometer is programmed for your stock 18-inch. Yeah, these only come with 18s, only 18-inch wheels and tires, and he just slapped 20s or something on there. So yeah, so keep that in mind. And those of you guys that want to change out your gear ratios, this will do that too. And for those of you newer Mustangs, I don't think it applies to this. But this also does a, if you replace a clutch in the manual transmission, I forget what it's called. There's a, you have to do some kind of reset for that too. And these do that if you have the proper vehicle. So, all right, I'm gonna insert this clip. I told you everything's on the fly for me, see? But yeah, these little tuning devices, they're really cool. Even if you don't want to tune your car, it's nice to have if you plan on getting aftermarket wheels and tires that are a different size. You can fix your speedometer with this, you know, and little things like that. So it reads trouble codes, so you don't have to kind of, you know, you can buy a tuning device, a tuning device, and maybe don't even get the tunes if you don't want the tunes. So, all right, peace out. Another pro tip: it's okay to get out of your car while, if the ignition's on while this is doing it, but be careful, don't hit the wire. Alright, you might as well keep this thing going. It's at 70%. It's gonna make a cool noise. That's why it's gonna do like some kind of, I think it turns your fuel pump on and off, or it makes some, it might be the computer making a noise. So we're coming down. It's gonna make me turn the key on and off again. Like I said, here we go. Let's see what happens. Oh, this is where it clears all your trouble codes. It's doing some beeping noises. Turn key off. Turn key on. Did you hear that clicking noise? Sounded dangerous. Download complete, all done, turn key off. That's all there is to it. I'm not gonna bother starting up the car, but I hope, but when you replace your throttle body or things like that, and you're using cleaner and all that, when you first start your car, it might struggle a little bit to start. That's normal. It might go, you know, it might skip a little. If you tune your car and you got like every dash light lit up, or there's a check engine light lit up, then you can drive it a bit, see what happens. But you might want to contact your tuner and say, hey, something ain't right with this tune. Or just tell them, maybe you forgot to tell them you got a part. Alright, I'm gonna go compile this video. But basically alright. That's all there is. I'm gonna unplug this tuner thing. There. So, remember, if you get one of these tuning devices and they give you an email tune, update the firmware on the device. Unless, I mean, if you got a Whipple supercharger and they're giving you the device with everything preloaded on it, then maybe you're fine. But if you're getting like a Bomba tune, but this is what I like to see. Look, it looks totally stock, right? Little do they know this airbox is a good box. This all looks kind of stock except for that. And that's what I like about the VMP. The VMP pulleys are black. They look stock. So no one knows. We got ourselves a sleeper Mustang with a tune, low temp thermostat, smaller pulley. That's a real cold air intake. It's not a open filter element. And we got this to flow more air. So technically we're pushing, I like to tell people, because at the crank I'm like, it should be about 600 horsepower, but I'll get it dynoed someday and let you guys know. Just based off of, and plus I have a Bomba tune, so maybe it's not as much. So, alright guys, well, thanks for hanging in there with the video. Remember all the tips I gave you, and hit me up in the comments if you have any questions, or if you want to tell me you don't know what the hell you're doing, or if you have any pointers for me, that helps too. So I'm gonna compile this video, and shout out to all my older GT500 owners. We're talking solid axle, raw muscle car owners. None of this brand new. Nah, I like the new Mustangs. I had one, it was a little bit too sports car like for me, so I went to back to this solid axle one. I talk all about that if you guys want to check out those videos. Alright, thanks for watching, and apologies. This is probably a marathon video, so you know, hopefully you guys enjoy the technical side of things, because that's mostly what I do. I'll do a driving video with this mods again, see what happens. Alright guys.